use chat.
Meeting is being recorded.
Use the chat and the Q&A buttons to interact with the session. This session will be recorded. Recorded will be shared on our YouTube channel for later reference. Now about the agenda, we will make a short introduction, about 5 minutes, and then the presentation will start. After that, we will have a Q&A and the closing part. So everything will be finished by 7 p.m. as announced. Who are we? PMI Switzerland was founded in 2001, so almost 25 years, with the purpose to promote project management and to become a recognized organization and community of all project professionals in Switzerland. Last year, we gathered more than 2,000 members. We shared more than 700 PDUs. We had 51 events with 1,448 attendees. So it makes like almost one event every week with almost 30 attendees per event, which is quite a good average. And our membership and our followers on social networks are also rising. This would not be possible without our sponsors. So thank you all our sponsors, our gold sponsor STS, the project management training company, our silver sponsor Capture, and our bronze sponsors ADEX Partners and Post Finance. Thank you for supporting us and for helping our events and our activities for the benefit of the project management. To see who we have, let's take a couple of polls this evening. Let's see where you're joining from this evening and what industry are you in. Okay, we have one joiner from Africa. Welcome. Most of the people predominantly are coming from Switzerland, 3 from other European countries, and 1 from Africa. Okay. Can we see the result? Thank you. Okay, in the next poll, please. Okay, this is also interesting. So most people are coming from Zurich and Romandy region. And this time, pharmaceutical, healthcare, and life sciences are leading ahead of information technology that usually has the most participants. So nice change. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your participation. So let's present our speaker tonight. Our speaker is Dr. Christoph Hirnle, who is during 20 years, he was helping organization become more effective, and he serves as the regional hub leader in Europe for the PMO Global Alliance. Without further ado, Christoph, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Nicola, and welcome everybody. I'm honored to be with you today. Thank you for joining the session, spending some time with me today on a topic that is really close to my heart. And let me start sharing my screen. I think it should be this one. Yes, it is how to make PMOs proud. And let me start by another poll. Um, if you can, would you please navigate to this Menti? I will also in the chat give you a code if you want to use it on directly in your browser. Um, chat, chat. Here you go. Here's the Menti. And my first question to you is, what are the first things, or what is the first word that you think of when you hear PMO? So let's see whether people are joining. Something for big companies. Some little princess there. Someone who's helpful. Someone who coordinates. Most dominant so far still support. Mhm, mhm. Right. Okay. So we have the theme here of someone who is supportive and showing quality and being helpful. So if that is all the case, the next question should be easy. PMOs help deliver more value in the organization. Agree or disagree? Mhm. So we have a 17 to 3 vote for PMOs being helpful and delivering value. But let's see another side of the coin, let's say. In your organization, our PMO has a good reputation. Agree or disagree? Beautiful. Beautiful. I love this group already. And now you should all come and join PMOGA in Europe to help spread the word and help spread your knowledge because what you have achieved is something that many don't. Um, when we look at when we look at statistics, or we mostly hear, we see a discrepancy between uh, the own observation on how you deliver value and how the rest of the organization perceives the PMO. And here's a study that the founder of PMOGA, Americo Pinto, did last year on what are the top challenges faced by PMO leaders. And it wasn't around project standards, it wasn't around agile, it wasn't around, say, it was around the recognition of the value that the PMO is providing. And even if those who have answered agree or strongly agree, on the question that your PMO has a good reputation. I still believe that this is a critical element in managing a PMO to make sure the organization recognizes the value. Now, clearly, to be a successful PMO, then we must implement the best PMO type. And that will get us to the last question in the Menti. So, next slide. What is the best PMO type, please? Center of excellence, the strategic PMO, an agile PMO, or a controlling PMO? So this is a very close race, a very close race. Center of excellence still ahead. The first time I've seen this poem being made was, I think, 4 years ago, maybe just after COVID. It was in Dubai. And we had a 25%, 25%, 25%, 25% vote. You can see, depending on industry and location, these things go up and down. Agile has had some difficulties in the past. If you do this in person, nobody really raises the arm for controlling PMO, but sometimes they do. And what the beauty of this is, yeah, um, the beauty of this is that the best PMO can be all of what you've just said at the same time. The best PMO, it depends on what it is that you want from it. And the only person to get to decide what the best PMO is your internal customer. Are the people that, and you mentioned, I think there was a dominant word in the cloud, in the word cloud, that you support through your services. And it is a community accepted knowledge, and you will see some of the theoretical part and the definitions that we'll look at in just a second on PMI standard knowledge on this, is that if you deploy a standard model into an organization, it might very well set up the PMO for failure. And now I see that you have in your organizations, you mentioned you are delivering value and you actually have a good reputation. And that is super good. And that is precisely also the reason why these concepts work so well on the here's a box controlling PMO, enterprise PMO, support PMO. Let's put it into my organization. But that's the essence. Those models work well for you. So Nicola mentioned dominant group today is pharma. There is IT. Nicola, I don't know what the other industries were. Can you share? What are the runner-ups?
Not sure whether I can see those now, but IT and pharma count for 80% of the tonight joiners.
Okay, yeah. So then, of course, so question is, are you IT services? Are you a software vendor? Are you a solution provider? It could be very different. Yeah, like what your industry is doing. It could also be very different on what the specific needs of your organization are. And if you implement a PMO that helps people, it's the right box, so to speak. And that's how these models come about. Because there's people who've been very successful in doing that. And of course, there needs to be a label for it. And so others try to replicate it. But that's something that I really advise you not to do. So here's where we get to reframing a typical PMO mindset. So this is the theory part, and it has a lot of content and it has a lot of text on slides. And the reason I'm keeping the text on the slides here for the presentation is because we're sharing the presentation after the event. And so oops, where's my presentation gone? Okay, something's wrong with PowerPoint. So we're sharing the presentation after the event, so you have something to read up on. I'm sorry, I need to start the presentation again. That was strange. Okay, let's present from here. Okay, wonderful. So when we talk about PMOs, what do we actually mean? This is the official PMI definition of what a PMO does. First, a PMO is an organizational entity. It's a unit. It's not a project. It's an organizational entity, and it's often established as a department, and its task is to centralize activities around project, program, and portfolio management. And here's the important bit, second sentence. The nature of these activities can vary according to the unique needs of each organization. So PMI says there is no standard PMO. A PMI PMO isn't a center of excellence, isn't an agile PMO, isn't a strategic PMO. It can be all of these things at the same time. Now, the next slide defines some of the characteristics that that qualify the PMO as a service provider. And of course, I won't go through all of these in great detail, but the number one thing that you have is it is customer-centric. And I love this group, as I said, because the dominant thing that you said in the word cloud was it is about being helpful. It is about being supportive. I don't know how the princess fits in, but that's like this is what a PMO should be doing. It should help people do their job better. And it should create value for the people that it is serving. Another element, maybe two more. One is service-based, and the other one is continuously improving. Service-based means depending on what your organization needs, you will offer different activities that have to do with centralizing project, program, or portfolio management. And the continuously improving is these services will change over time. You will continue providing some services, whilst others you will discontinue, or you will increase the maturity for some services that you're delivering, while you might decrease. I'm saying decrease the maturity of some of the things that you're doing, just to deliver the appropriate service for the customer. And of course, there is a framework behind this. And I guess this is the intellectual foundation, the very core of what the PMO Global Alliance, as part of PMI, determines to be managing a PMO as if it were a business unit. So what we have on this graph is the so-called value ring framework. You see it is a ring, it's a continuous process that is a repeated process of designing and delivering services for your internal customers. And I have to say, I've been with PMOGA for, I don't know, 5 years or so. This used to be easier before PMOGA was acquired by PMI. Just a little hint, but there were many, many good things added. I want to get to one core element and then speak to some of the others. The core, absolute core element is this ring here that you see with exploration, design, deployment, enhancement, and realization. That's the customer experience cycle. So think of it. Before you start setting up a PMO, or you take over a PMO, or you run your PMO, you would want to know what are the things that your internal customers need. And of course, you have many internal customers. Well, let's be transparent and clear on who those customers are, and you will not be able to serve all of them at the same quality at the same time. You have limited resources. So what, of course, you do is you prioritize your potential customers. You look at what are their specific needs, and then you design services, and we'll be a lot more specific in just a second, that meet these needs. You deploy them, you monitor them, and in the end, you get back to, and that's what I think the making PMOs proud is the main lever, the value recognition element. Because in the very beginning, if you ask the right questions, and again, we'll look at that in just a second, if you ask the right questions on what is the outcome that you want to achieve, my dear customer, noted, I, as the professional, because you know how this works, will deploy the right service and monitor that and be engaging with you around that service. And in the end, we'll jointly recognize whether the service that I have provided has had a positive impact on the desired outcome that you wanted to achieve. And this strategy is universal, but of course, your options will be very much determined by, for example, um, the organization strategy or your culture. Plainly put, do people like you? If they do, yeah, you might have a very much easier discussion. Or if they're a little more hesitant, you might need to pick services to match a need, an outcome that have an immediate effect. Can you imagine what I mean? Yeah. Looking also at Nicola because he's the only one who's got his camera on. But if you think of it, if you have a customer who has a severe issue and they are they don't trust you so much at this point, you cannot propose a service or a solution that will show effects in 12 months. They will want to show effects in 3 months, the latest. Does that ring a bell? Does that make sense? Yeah. So let's look at some of those services. Um, Here's a definition that the services are repeatable processes that you provide to your internal customers. Yeah? And it exists to address that specific customer need. Now, what services could those be? Here's a list. These are 26 PMO services that were identified by the global PMO community. And we'll look at some names later. But look at this list here. Advice to executive level. Have you thought that that this is a service that you provide? But actually you do. You're an advisor. Sometimes you actually manage projects. Does anyone on the call manage projects like as part of their PMO? You could, yeah. I've worked with an organization uh, in the Black Forest in Germany, and they were in medtech, and they started off with a PMO of 2 people, and they started doing project management, and they did it so well that other units came, hey, can you manage our projects too? And I said, yeah, okay, we can manage your projects too. So they managed some more projects. And then they said, we actually have we don't want you to manage the projects, but could you help us manage them? Yeah. So they provided services around training, project management, and yeah, ensuring quality for those projects. And someone said, we would want to perhaps now look at our overall portfolio of initiatives that we have because they're product development. Yeah, so can you help us with that? And now this PMO is 35 people. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like you're an organization and you have customers. And if you do a good job because you are offering what someone needs, you build a reputation and you will get repeat business. So that's the general logic. Now, this is what you offer, but what is it that the others want, really want? Because they don't want resource management. They don't care about resource management, probably. They want to achieve something specific. And here's a different perspective, and that is the outcomes. So, what are the results that your customers are trying to achieve from better centralized services around project program and portfolio management? So I have another example that's in the public sector. Sometimes you get a budget, and if you don't spend the money, next year the budget's gone. Ever heard of that? Maybe not so much for what you're doing in pharma and IT, but well, who knows? Yeah, big companies sometimes work like little states. So the main desired outcome of the CIO of this organization was I need to identify the bottlenecks that keep me from spending the money that I have available this year. Yeah, because otherwise my money's gone. That's a specific outcome. So what are the services that you can provide that this actually happens? Here are, of course, that was a specific example, but here are expected outcomes that are typical for your internal customers. So for example, a typical one, improved success rates for projects or increased visibility of project progress. I don't know what's going on. Sometimes it is rather, I don't know of all the things that we're doing. And I have the impression that we're just doing stuff that has nothing to do with our strategy. Solve that for me. And then it's your job to identify the right medicine to this pain. Because that's the picture that the PMOGA has been using, I think from day one, is matching the pain with the right medicine. So it is about understanding what is the issue in their terms and applying, because you're the professional, applying the right medicine. And as I said about you need something that works short term or longer term, think of painkillers and antibiotics, yeah, or maybe surgery. Yeah. You might even need all three, yeah, to actually solve your customer's issue in that sense. And now, um, I didn't come up with all of this. This is that the community has put together globally. The PMOGA was founded some 7, 8 years ago with members in, I think, something like 100 countries. These are the people that have contributed to like the specific document that you just looked at. And so this here, the PMO practice guide. Oops, is it in here? No, it's coming up. I'm sorry. These are the people that have contributed to this knowledge, to the condensing all that knowledge into the PMO practice guide, which I want to show you some examples of. And that's one of the tips that I want to give you for later also is, of course, getting hold of that practice guide. But here's an example of how to map outcomes with services. So for example, there's an expected outcome. It's enhancing resource management, and people would think, okay, we have under or over utilized resources, and we have project bottlenecks. Maybe your customers don't know these words. They don't know resource allocation. They don't know project bottlenecks. They don't understand what that means. Yeah. But what is something that you can ask a customer? So, do your projects get delayed? Yeah, because people aren't available, or are there always people on your teams that have like a lot to do, and then other people sit idle or don't work on important things? And if people say, yeah, happens, but I don't think that's important. Yeah, I'm much more interested in something else. So you have another list of questions, yeah, for each of those outcomes, yeah, that you can use in interviewing your internal customers, like the individual groups, to find out, hey, what's a pain that I want to resolve? And for those pains, then there's a list of recommended services that you can apply. For example, here we see enhanced resource management, and the prime service to improve resource management is portfolio management. How come? See, that's that's what I meant around the customer might think that this is the solution, but in essence, it is a combination of others. And luckily, if you have different customer groups, they might even utter different needs, so different outcomes, but you can address different outcomes for different groups, sometimes with the same service. Yeah, you get the logic? Okay. Now, okay, so now you pick, we need to enhance resource management, we want to do portfolio management. So how do I do that? Now I'd go for scenario simulation and everything is net present value and whatever. Maybe sometimes that's too much. Here's a practical list, an example of different levels of maturity for portfolio management. And for some organizations, it can be as simple as a list. Who's ever kept a list of projects in Excel? Homegrown? Yeah, of course. Yeah. And that's already helpful in a lot of in a lot of moments. And only later, perhaps. So if you say, we want to improve project delivery dates by getting rid of bottlenecks, well, sometime then you probably need to go to somehow level 3, because this includes actively managing the portfolio and optimizing resource allocations on an ongoing basis. Okay. But that's where you stop. You don't need to go further, because this probably solves your customer's issue of project delivery dates. Do you see what I mean? So if you do level 5, you have a lot of cost and effort, and I mean also process cost and effort, that is not in line with the expected outcome. So you're providing, I know some people are in IT, this is the old example, you're providing a Ferrari what the Volkswagen would do, right? Okay. Now, that was the theory bit. I've seen in the questions whether the slides will be shared. Yes, they will be shared, and that's why I'm keeping all the lot of text on the slides for you. But how can we start? What is the practical next step that we can take if we believe this concept? Well, it sounds somewhat interesting. Yeah. Well, the first thing is, I guess, assessing yourself. Do you see yourself on the PMO success quadrant? We have, of course, super easy ones, bottom left and top right. So if you don't meet the expectations of your customers and your processes don't work well, that's because also perhaps you don't have the skills or the abilities. That's a clearer one. Top right, I guess some of the people actually said, yes, we have a very, very good reputation. So you might be there on the top right. On the bottom, no, top left, high alignment, low maturity is you're there. Like you're in touch with your customers. You know what they want, and so you know that you have a chance, and you can run a strategy saying, okay, what is the service that is most important now to my customers? Yeah, and where do I improve the quality of what I'm doing? But the terrible one, the terrible quadrant is the bottom right. And that's what we see so often. And um, I don't know whether you've followed some of the earlier work on PMOs with maturity models and the like. And I remember there was a study with a big consulting group that PMI also did a couple of years ago, saying, "Oh, companies are so mature in PMOs, and mature PMOs create so much value and whatever." But if you have high maturity in things that are not relevant to your organization, you're out of your job. And I've worked with PMO leaders where that happened because they believed I know what my company needs, and that might be true, but not just yet. Yeah. And that's probably where a lot of failures and frustrations and good intentions and high quality work and and and, and a lot of emotions go into with seeing very little effect. And that's the saddest. So I do hope for you that you're on the top right. We're somewhere nearing the top right. And to further improve your alignment with your internal customers and your providing the right maturity, I do recommend you to get that guide. Um, I'm not 100% sure how many of the attendees today are PMI members, but in your PMI membership, on PMI.org, you can just download, copy, yeah, and browse through it. I think was it last year, the year before? I don't remember. I remember reading reading the early versions, and I held it in my hand and I thought, oh wow, this is good. This is so practical. It is so practical, and I use it all the time. I really use it all the time. Um, So I recommend get a copy and browse through whatever is interesting to you. I've given you some excerpts, perhaps, that those are the strongest sections I felt on what are the services and how do you map them. And then if you have more questions, of course, you can reach out to me or also in Switzerland, there are PMO in PMI Switzerland. There's a PMO group also, but you can also join here the online community. So this is the global PMOGA online community within PMI. It's a space to discuss to share news. It has additional resources. So some of the materials, the basic concepts of the PMO practice guide, they're also available here on the online community home. So you would find short videos explaining some of the key concepts and of course more depth than we were able to cover today. Now, finally, I guess I'm almost done. I even had a few more minutes, I guess, Nicola. But then about PMOGA. So what is PMOGA? I've been talking about PMOGA, PMOGA. But who is that? The PMOGA is PMI's global community of PMOs. We offer a range of, let's call it services or assets or things that can help you build, run, recover your PMO and or further your career. Some of the things that you know from PMI anyways are certifications and building connections with other professionals, having that professional exchange. There are awards for not only the PMO of the year that you might know still from some of the PMI in the last years, but also more specific ones that highlight specific achievements in like so. For example, that's maybe something I wanted to share. It was 2 years ago when the PMOGA held its annual unconference. Unconference, what would that be? So the bottom line here, events. PMOGA doesn't do a conference, we do an unconference. So unlike today, where I stand here and speak to the black screens for most, um, it's flipped. The attendees make the conference because they're professionals. There's a question that is asked to the audience, and there are moderators, but that's how the unconference works. It is not someone who's super clever to tell everyone, oh, this is how you do it. But it is rather, here's a question, or here's a set of questions, and how relevant is it for the group? And then the group shares their knowledge to, to show some ways to get there, right? And so it is clear that the awards are also not what's the most shiny, the most bright, whatever. But in 2 years ago at the Uncon in Istanbul, the PMO of the year was I think 500 people company, IT services company from Brazil. And they won against the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia that has 5-star, 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 5-star in all of the services they provide. But what the Brazilian company managed to achieve was achieve outstanding customer satisfaction with very, very low means. Does that ring? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Because that's the reality for most of us. Yeah. We have small teams. There's tons of things that you can do. We've looked at the services that are possible. Yeah. But how do you pick and how are you clever about picking just what you need to make your customers happy? Now, if you're already in PMO and you've worked your way through the PMO practice guide, here's a certification that PMI offers, the PMO certified practitioner. It's a gold standard PMI certification. It is not as difficult to be eligible for it as the portfolio management professional for PMI, for example. No, this is a hands-on certification that I can totally recommend, of course. Now, that's one way. Another thing that you can do is if you want to get involved, again, I don't know how many people are members of PMI here, but even if you're not, if you're interested and if you're successful in your PMO and want to spread the word and you believe in the concepts that I've just shared, join the team. Be part of this group. You see, we're here from all over Europe, France, Spain, Turkey, Croatia, Czech Republic. Laura is also often related to the Italian chapters. Come, share your knowledge, help others understand what makes a PMO more effective, more customer aligned. We'd be super happy to welcome you on the team. And now, I guess, question time. So please feel free to connect with me reach out with questions, whether it's about any of the content that we've seen today, joining PMOGA Europe. There's also, besides the European level, there are um, local or country-based initiatives. For example, Switzerland and Germany are piloting a mentoring program for PMOs. So there's a lot to be done. And I thank you so much for your interest and for listening to me for 30 straight minutes. Wow, that was a long time. That Yeah, I guess this time for questions now.
Thank you very much, Christoph. It was an excellent presentation. I think a lot of information shared in 30 minutes. And we already have some questions. So let me reshare the screen. And let's ask start with the questions that were coming through your presentation. So the first one says, how would you include or differentiate customers and stakeholders when building the PMO?
Mhm, mhm. There are typical stakeholder groups, of course, that you'll also read up in the guide. There are typically your management, there's project managers, there's team leads. There are the most typical ones. There could be different departments, of course. I don't know what, of course, your context. Spoke to someone in chemicals this week who is now responsible for running a PMO that provides services to 5 business lines, for example. And so within each business line, you might then have these customer groups. Yeah. So I think it is important to be really specific about who are people that have like a need from you, but then how do you prioritize? And typically, of course, you prioritize by the person um, that you get the money from, right? That finances your PMO. Yeah, so that's always a good customer, yes. But here's something that I feel is really important in PMO work. Um, Delivering value through projects is a organizational challenge. It includes more than the project manager and the people who work on the project. It is the sponsors. It is the people that you report to, the people that you deliver the projects for. And it is, I think, too short-sighted to only go for what your boss wants. Yeah. So really looking at these different groups, and when I said that it is meaningful to do these interviews, I'll give you a case study in just a second. But when you do these interviews, you might discover that there's a these different desired outcomes, but the service that you're providing is solves for those different outcomes. Does that make sense? So, for example, if someone, an example I like a lot is I talked to a program manager at Apple, and he said that the most important thing for them is that the engineers have time to live out their technical curiosity, right? So to be able to build that iPhone, yeah, you need focus time. While the management, like giving someone focus time is not an outcome for them. For them, it is hitting the deadline for the Christmas business, right? But for example, a resource portfolio, whatever type of solution can handle both requests. Yeah. And the other example I wanted to give, um, one of the things that we're doing as PMOGA Europe is hosting a quarterly PMO Power Hour. I don't know whether any of you have been on it already. And I think it was in June when an Irish PMO reported on how they went from nothing to Ireland's PMO of the year. And the first half year, and of course, this was a lucky person because they were able to have that much time. But the first half year, all the new PMO leader did was interview all of the stakeholders and like build that concept. I know many don't have the time, so maybe it might be you might have a month, but investing into determining who the customers are and finding the right solution, you know, is really, really helpful. I hope that answers the question a little bit. But
Thank
in
you.
the
Thank you, Christoph. And I think that partly answers the next questions that says, how do you get buy-in from project managers and stakeholders who see the PMO as a bureaucracy?
Yes. There's clearly, if you are not providing any value to them whatsoever, then the nugget would be find out, is there something else that you can help them with? Yeah. So what is it? So yes, think of like we're all humans and we all are a little bit economic people. So we have a cost benefit ratio for everything that we do. So when doing your job, there's this process burden that you put on people for the bureaucracy, yeah, and there's no value against that. I understand maybe sometimes that is very, very difficult. But is there something that you can provide value for them that then has no effort for them? So their balance is the same. Th- Does that make sense? Yeah. So it is really okay. We need you guys. Yeah. And that's also something that you can also talk to your, your managers or executives about saying, okay, the project managers, they now all have all this bureaucracy because we want to capitalize or whatever. But this won't work long unless we give them something that they really need. And everybody understands that, I guess.
Okay, I guess that's a clear shot. The next question is more technical. Says there are a lot of PMO tools out there, like PlanView, Planisware. Is there any recommendations in terms of how to choose the best tool for a PMO?
It's always what is the thing that you're trying to solve? If you are, um, I'll answer this question with an analyst quote I got from a Canadian researcher. Barry Cousins is the name. He's head of research at Infotech. They're like number 4 or 5, I don't know. And he did the statistic of what is a typical PPM, PM, PMO tool cycle. And it goes this way. You go from nothing to Excel to something homegrown, like Excel plus Power BI plus something. And that somehow does often the trick. You know, when we talked about what's the level of maturity they need to get, huh? And then you go like, oh yeah, now we need like the full maturity, and you go to a big system that can do everything. And the statistics show then you go back to when you go back to nothing or Excel plus. Yeah. So my only suggestion is, yeah, so I've been in the industry for, I think the specific industry for 10, 12 years, like in the software space. Think about what is the challenge that you need to solve now, yeah, and find something that is lightweight to solve that challenge. And the tools today, you can change them. Yeah, that's you can migrate them. People got used to that already. Yeah, but my suggestion is try to find something specific that solves the problem that you have. And if it is, for example, if you're a central bank and you have needs for documentation on your project standards, or you're in automotive or whatever, you need a big shot. You need like the full thing because that's a legal requirement. If you're not, you know, sometimes a list will do. Yeah, but think of what it is that you're trying to achieve and ask ChatGPT. I know, yes. It's a, of course, it's just a starting point, but if you can specify what is the problem that you're trying to solve, that's also a good idea.
Thank you. The next question addresses the slide about assessment. So high performance PMOs and the others. What metrics or KPIs you actually recommend for PMOs to use to track how they are aligned or mature in order to place themselves on that diagram?
You mean so I have to ask back whether you meant the
Yeah, maturity and alignment. Yes.
mhm. Um, hang on a second. So there is no in this there's no KPI as in, hey, if you've reached customer satisfaction score, you could perhaps do that. But I think what you find is that are people believing, huh, that you're solving something for them? Yeah, that's the alignment piece, I guess. Yeah. Do people, when you ask, would they say, hey, would if we had to pay you, would we? Yeah. That's a tough question as a PMO. Would you pay me if it was on your cost center? Ooh, yeah, good question. I think that's the alignment piece. And the maturity, there are many ways to determine maturity in the individual services. So again, in the PMO practice guide, I've shown you, I think, the 5 levels for portfolio management as an example. So I guess you can classify yourself there. But here's the thing about maturity and value perception. Um, Also, picture that Americo invented and uses very often. So imagine I give you a key to a Ferrari. Yeah, that's what I say. Here's the key to a Ferrari. You would say, okay, yeah, I think that's a good thing. And I would say, okay, here's the key to the Ferrari. You can also have a remote controlled Ferrari, like the remote control for a remote control Ferrari. And you would, I guess I know what you would pick. Even if you don't like cars, you would take it and sell it. But you know what the value is. Now think of a 3-year-old. I'm not saying exactly as a 3-year-old, but if you if you give a kid the two, they will pick the remote controlled car because that's something they can use and understand and make sense of, and that actually helps them. Yeah. So maturity has to be adapted to value recognition by maturity of your customers. And the other one on alignment, I guess it is as simple as does it like, give me the feedback. 5 stars out of 5 or 1 out of 5? Can't get 0. Hope that
Thank,
helps out a bit.
thank you. Yeah, well, plastic example speaks thousand words. We have a couple of questions about the certifications that I would like to address in the end, but now I would come to an interesting questions by Martin Harry. Says, are you aware of typical differences between PMOs, which are due to country, industry, or something else? For example, German PMOs different from other countries like United States, or PMOs in pharma different from IT, or so how do can you address those differences, for example, and specificities?
Mhm. Mm. You probably remember, or I think I have highlighted it, when we looked at the value ring, yeah,
Mhm.
of the customer experience cycle. And I said that with PMI, we've added things left and right and made it more complex. But I think it was really, really meaningful because one of the dimensions is a cultural dimension. And the cultural dimension is by industry or also by country. Could be very different. I want to give you maybe one example between Germany and Switzerland, and then perhaps another one between then Switzerland and the US. So um, I find Swiss PMOs to be very clear and pragmatic in comparison to German PMOs. So German PMOs, I think in Germany, you cannot say that you work for a PMO. It's a non-word. They have PMOs in Germany have such a bad reputation because all they do is someone put it up, bureaucracy, bureaucracy, bureaucracy. Here's a cultural thing. I don't know. Yeah. Um, or then I told you the example about Brazil, yeah, where this is what can you achieve? How can you achieve a lot with a little? How can you improvise? Yeah. See, that's like a real cultural thing in Brazil that is just embedded in how you run that PMO. And it's like, no, maybe not so much standard, but like, okay, let's get this deal out. Yeah. For the US, I have the impression it is very, very finance driven, very, very, um, um, I would say super short-term results needed. But that's again depends on the industry. Um, so long story short, um, businesses are made of people, and people are brought up with their culture. And so it is important to understand your organization what is important to people in the organization. So even if you know that bureaucracy would help, if in your organization bureaucracy is not a thing, if people don't believe in it by upbringing or industry or whatever, it will be a failure. Or only then later you can introduce level 1 or 2 of bureaucracy after solving some other things. I hope that's maybe a good approach to it.
Thank you. And a couple of questions about the difference between portfolio management professional and PMO CP certifications. Can you address it in a few minutes, in a minute or so?
Unfortunately, I don't know the the portfolio management professional of PMI, the certification. What I do know is that I think the entry requirements for the portfolio management professional are very high. And so I think you need to manage portfolios, I think 10, 20 million or so. But this other thing is, when you look at what a PMO CP's qualification, or what I was talking about the last hour, is what are the services that you should provide, and think of it as you're the business leader of that internal agency, and what are the products that you want to offer to your customers. And if you see that someone wants to do portfolio management, then you need a portfolio management skill, and you can hire someone who has a PMO, a portfolio management certification. But maybe you don't need that at all. You need someone with a regular PMP to teach how projects are completed, because that's a lot more valuable. So maybe that's 2 different levels. So one is like the entry requirements are very different, but the focus of PMO CP is running a PMO as a business unit, and the portfolio management professional is like how to manage portfolios.
Okay, thank you. Clear enough. And the last question says, what are the benefits of having PMI certification in relation to Hirnle certification? I wouldn't now largely address this, but okay, Hermes is kind of a Swiss specific thing. PMI is international standard, and Hermes can be understood as a application deployment of PMBOK in one thing. But I would invite people to join other PMI events and visit the PMI website and see the differences and the advantages of PMI. So with this, I would like to start finishing our session. Thank you very much, Christoph. This was very inspiring and very interesting, and a lot of information, as I said. So all this recording will be present on our YouTube channel, and the presentation that Christoph shared will be shared with all attendees after the event. So with this, I would like to thank Kopal, our Zoom host tonight. Thank you very much, Kopal, for helping both me and Christoph and maintaining this session. We didn't see you as you didn't open your camera, but we know you're there. And now we would like your opinion on this event, your feedback. You can see that you also received the link to the survey form in the post-event email together with the presentation. And I would encourage you to take some time and think, and also give us your ideas for next topics, next events. So use please those free form text fields, and also share your opinions and your interests. For this session, you will receive 1 PDU, those of you who hold valid certificates for the ways of working, and it will be automatically assigned to your PMI account within two business weeks. Our next events, as we are approaching the end of the year, we will have one member orientation session next Monday, and there will be a project management apero in Zurich in the 18th of December, and then we will take a Christmas break, and the next events will be planned early January. So stay tuned and come back to us after the Christmas vacation. And as we said, PMI Switzerland will become 25 soon. So next year, Big 25th anniversary party will happen in Biel on the 6th of March. Registration is open, so feel free to register now and take your place, reserve your place for the march. PMI Switzerland chapter is 100% volunteer based. We only have one legal representative as we are obliged to, but all services are provided by volunteers who are not paid. So in advance, apologies for any mistakes that we make, but I hope you will forgive us, and I hope even better that you will join us and improve our work and help us perform even better. Here you see that we have needs in the event teams. So one of them also for the virtual events like this one, but also the on-site. If you have interest, feel free to reach out and visit PMI Switzerland website for more information about the open volunteering positions. Another thing that we proudly promote is our mentoring program. We started with project management mentoring mentors and mentees. As Christoph announced, we will soon thinking about starting the PMO mentoring. If you also have interest in PMO mentoring and mentees, please reach out and express that interest so that we can plan for that topic too. Follow us on social medias. We are present on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Recording of the session will be on our YouTube channel, so stay tuned. And thank you all. Thank you, Christoph. Thank you, attendees, and enjoy the evening. I hope you enjoyed this event, and good night, everybody.
Goodbye.